Okay, it says we are live. Let's find out.
Hello, everybody.
I'm running.
It's
the test on the other PC.
Still not showing me, so.
Says we're live, but there it is. Hold on, I'll throw the link. Well, I'm not going to throw the link, but you know.
You probably shouldn't.
Throwing digital media seems kind of like a lot of trouble to figure out, so I'm just going to not.
It's like you're throwing heavy beats, man. Gotta throw them beats.
Okay, I DM'd you the link. I'm going to put the link in the other channels here in a minute.
Alright. Well,
there's so many different Discords, I have to figure out where everything goes. One down.
Let's see. Hello, potato. Let's see. I'm gonna check the adjustment levels.
You checking the what now?
Voice levels.
Oh. Well, there's no game volume yet, so that's going to be kind of hard to...
I think I need to move my mic a little closer.
Gotcha. Do what you gotta
sometimes
do,
I just got to make sure that the voices are good.
Fine with me.
Hearing voices in my head.
I mean, wow, what? The fuck?
There's an old song that went like that.
Fair enough.
Just being me.
I got one more place I gotta post this.
Oh my god.
Over in Lex's server. There's a gaming channel there.
Okay. Well, let's see.
Alright, let's minimize
this.
Welcome
to an Ode to Counter Monkey. If you're not familiar, ladies and gentlemen, Counter Monkey was something that the Spoony one did a long time ago, in which he talked about various different elements of tabletop RPGs, from philosophy to gameplay to old stories, and even actually the occasional review of gaming material. And we thought, hey, why not have a little bit of a gaming video, so in case some people are watching, they can have a video to watch. And we'd talk about some of our experiences with group dynamics and some of the problems that come up that you'll inevitably, if you get into this hobby, encounter.
Straight up, the chick on the cover art here is fucking hot. I ain't gonna. I got no shame in that. I need to delete some of these autosaves.
I'm over here talking about the thing, and then you're like, this chick on the cover is hot. Oh, yeah.
She is. What do you want from me?
Oh, man. Okay.
No, don't load it.
Oh, pardon me. I couldn't find that any more entertaining than I did.
It would not let me delete these autosaves, so I guess I'm just going to have to deal with them. Alright, fine.
Well, that's life sometimes.
Jet, but please continue. Jeez, Jet. Chill out, cat. Okay, I can't break that shit.
Okay. Well...
Can't break those either.
So, I give people a little bit of idea of what inspired me on this one. I've been in the... I'm going to call it the hobby for about 30 years. I started playing very young. I was introduced to it by my father.
Weirdly enough.
Weirdly enough. I actually remember reading the articles in Inquest magazine when AD&D 2nd edition was getting ready to come out. I also remember when they put out world-building articles, so how to build worlds for your various RPGs.
Yeah.
But I was watching one of Spoony's Counter Monkeys, and he started talking about alignment. And if
do you want to maybe? I would say, do you want to maybe unpack alignment first?
Yeah. If you have ever played anything like D&D or any of the systems that have an alignment, there's usually some amount of issue to it one way or another. And that usually comes down to player behavior, character behavior, and interpretation to a degree. So, in D&D, you have anything from chaotic evil to lawful good and everything between. And in that regard, you can actually have a lot of conflict, especially if you have a player who is deliberately misinterpreting or deliberately pushing as close to the rules as written.
Yeah.
To take advantage of a situation. This is especially prone to happen when you have a player who's trying to control the actions of other players. I've actually seen this boil down to in-game fights and out-of-game fights.
Yep. That was the thing back in the day.
One big thing that I thought was, well, while it would be fun to talk about alignment and take a dump all over it where it deserves, I think one of the bigger things, especially if you get involved in tabletop RPGs,
party and group makeup, I believe,
is player dynamics.
Yeah.
If you are a DM, you will inevitably have to deal with how your players get along with each other and how they get along with you. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't have someone that you're not friends with or that you are friends with in the game.
No, not at all.
How they conduct themselves. Now, as an example, I've had it where I've had players openly espouse that it was their job to make my life miserable in game.
And more specifically, for a longer term, mine.
And I've also been in games where the DM espoused that his entire job was to make me miserable. And this, I think, is one of those situations that it demonstrates the problem when dealing with other people and expectations.
Yeah.
So my philosophy was, if I'm sitting down, if I'm a player or the DM, game master, the guy running the game,
yeah,
my goal was to have fun. And that was my first priority.
Yeah, I agree.
My second priority was to make sure that the game continued so I could continue having fun. Now, I worked a number of very, very tedious, dirty, and then also dangerous jobs. So, when I would get time off, I wanted to actually, enjoy my hobby. But as a player, one thing I figure you're going to always have to deal with is you need good communication. That's first.
Definitely.
You need players whose main interest is to enjoy the game and make sure everyone else is having entertainment too. And then 3, you have to be able to deal with and I'm going to try to put it in as fair a way as I can, the ill will of some individuals.
Very true.
So, shifting to the alignment element. I've had players who misinterpreted things, interpreted things in very particular or stringent manners. But I've also had, and this is where I generally had the most problem, because the other two groups, usually, you can pull them aside and be like, hey, I think you're going a little too far, or hey, maybe you should read that again, I think this is causing a problem. Those people generally are interested in at least, as long as you're not going, you're a problem, stop being a problem, as long as you're not hostile, tend to be willing to listen to you and at least try.
Generally speaking, yeah.
The third group are the ill will people, as I'm going to call them. The folks who are there to take advantage of mechanics, rules, and misinterpretations to cause stress and trouble.
Yeah.
And by this, D&D is infamous for people picking... Well, here's a good one. What they used to call it when I was around was lawful stupid. So lawful good, basically, there were people who would play lawful good. So lawful good meant you were a good person, or you were sided with good,
Yeah.
and you respected the law. Of course, there are a lot of people who would take this as you could have a player jaywalk, and they would arrest that player and turn them over for prosecution.
This can come into a very specific, and we discussed this earlier today before we started the episode, a specific issue with very particular classes. If you have a thief character, for a good example, and almost any character would be considered lawful, neutral, good, etc., because a lot of the times there would be this instantaneous expectation almost of these characters inevitably butting heads over everything.
Well, the traditional mix was almost always the lawful good paladin and
The chaotic neutral or the freaking...
Let's not even go with the brain damage chaotic neutral. Let's just go the chaotic good.
All right.
Thief. Just for fun. Or, you know, any the neutral good, the neutral thief, whatever.
Yeah.
These two inevitably would always clash because as soon as the paladin who's playing lawful good realized that someone was a thief, he would then try to do everything in his power to make sure the other character couldn't do anything that he disagreed with.
Yeah.
Therefore, trying to control the player. Now, this can just be a matter of, hey, these people go and they're like, this is how my character is, so I'm going to do this 100%.
Yeah.
And usually, if you're a DM, step in and go, hey guys, this isn't working out. Can one of you lay off on this?
Mm-hmm. Which was especially fun if you had really stubborn fucking players.
Which is especially trouble if you have that. But if you have the player who comes in with bad intentions, he's there to cause trouble. He isn't going to be interested in basically being told, hey, this isn't fun for everybody. Because his goal is to cause pain, suffering, and irritation. Because it's what he gets off on. He, she, whatever. The dog next door, whatever. The point being is that when I heard Spoony talk about this, he made a lot of good points.
Yeah.
So if you are trying to get into the hobby, go over watch some of his philosophy videos in the Counter Monkey stuff.
And even if you don't agree with Spoony and some of what he had done in recent years, his old videos are still good, especially these, because he makes a lot of good points, even though he does have a bias, like any gamer does, about certain things. He still has a lot of good information if you're looking to get into the hobby.
But one of the things is, you're going to have to negotiate this. So, when you're dealing with things like this, player dynamics is a big one that you have to immediately be able to tell. Do they work together? Is there someone who just does not mesh with the group for good or ill? What do they do well, what they don't do well? One big problem I had with players who would never tell me what they wanted until
well after.
Too late for them to get what they wanted. So communication, player dynamics, and sadly, with time and experience, the ability to tell when there's someone that is coming into the game simply to make a mess of it.
Yeah.
So, what do you do in those situations? Well, I think it's a very basic thing. Always talk to your players. Always ask them what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, what they would like to do. And if there's a problem, never take it to a hostile place initially.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is, if there's a problem between Thief A and Paladin B, don't go in and go, hey, knuckleheads, knock your crap off.
Yeah.
Go, hey, look, guys, I can tell there's a problem. There's some kind of issue. Maybe you're focusing a little too much on your alignment. Or, hey, you both are supposed to be able to have fun. What can I do? Is there something we can change? Is there something you don't understand? Let's see what we can do to work out this situation, because you, for example, Paladin B, policing Thief A is really just robbing him of doing anything. So all you guys are doing is spending the game butting heads. Maybe a character change would be better.
Well, it becomes a blatant conflict of interest that disrupts everything, because you just have these two characters and players just willfully butting heads and wasting a lot of time.
Well, sometimes people just get carried away. They get into the mindset of their character, and it can lead to conflict. That's why I said, after a game, if there's something like this, go, hey guys, I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything, but what can we do to make this work? Always try to approach it from I understand what you're trying to do. You come at it like you're being very understanding, or you are trying to be understanding. You don't immediately go, you're screwing up, stop being a jerk.
Well, yeah.
Unless, and this is where I'm going to get to, you get to a person who is deliberately there just to make people miserable.
And those do exist.
They are the type of person that you go, hey, this behavior's causing trouble. Can you knock it off? And they might knock it off for a session or two, and then they immediately go back in. You will learn over time, just like if you're dealing with any human being, what people are there just to cause trouble.
Yeah.
And the best thing you can do is ask those people to leave and just move on. It's not worth spending years or loads of time trying to corral someone who is only there to cause trouble and mischief.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because all you're going to cause is your players and yourself strain. You're going to steal time away from yourselves. And more importantly, you're not going to enjoy the game, because you're going to have to put so much mental energy into basically dealing with these problems. Sometimes, and this can also go to play styles. So maybe this person's not even malicious. They just don't like the style of game. And they're trying to push it to something they like. Sometimes it's just okay, you want this kind of game, but we're doing this kind of game, or this other thing. Maybe you should find another group. Sometimes it comes down to just simply differences in players' expectations, wants, and desires. So, usually my best concept to people is simply try to take hey, look, I'm not blaming you, I'm not trying to be aggressive, but I've noticed that this is going on. What can we do to fix it? Oh, we can't fix that. Well, maybe it's time for you to move to another group and find some people that you would be more comfortable playing with, or do something you like.
Yeah.
It is important for you to remember, it is your hobby.
Yeah.
It is your free time. You can never get it back. And wasting your time
Fighting with people who either A, are there just to make you waste time and energy and to be miserable, or simply do not value the same things you do, is, especially in that case, you're wasting their time and they're wasting yours. Yep. Pretty much, yeah. Just
it's more polite to simply go, we have different things we value, let's go our own ways. We don't have to do it like handshake, I hope you find what you want, and go on. But in D&D terms, this often boils down to misuses of the alignment system. And I think it's one reason why in like 4th edition they tried to tone down alignment so much, because it really gets in the way and causes a lot of pointless arguments and philosophy debates, like, oh, you know, we can't eat all of the baby carrots because it's immoral because of something in my alignment. Because my anti-baby carrot strategy is this, and your chaotic baby carrot strategy is that.
There she is.
It will devolve into something as stupid as what I just said.
Yeah. Well, should we tackle the baby monsters argument that always comes up in some groups?
Okay. So the first thing I'll say on this is, as a DM and as a player, there are a number of responsibilities you have. And one of those responsibilities on both sides
can't thank you enough.
is to never, ever put the group in a situation in which there's going to be a massive degree of conflict between the players.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that you got to put them in every situation that they agree with and like. Never saying that. Mm-hmm. What I mean is, don't put the players in a situation in which, point blank, they're going to evolve into an inane, pointless, game-wasting argument about, well, what do we do with this? This is, I believe a lot of people call it the prisoner dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
Where you catch Evil Bandit Chuck. Evil Bandit Chuck is going to be hung in the village.
Yeah.
So, where could this ever cause a problem? You've caught Evil Bandit Chuck. Alright, well, half your players are basically down. It is a thief and a paladin standing there. And one goes, why don't we just ice this guy? Because he's going to get it in the village anyways.
Well...
And the paladin goes, no, we must march 30 miles dragging the corpses of our own companions so that he can be hung pointlessly in the village.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours later, those two players are still arguing about that 30, if they just get rid of the guy or they march him 30 miles to be hung, while the rest of the player characters are slowly dying. And guess what? On top of that situation, you've now wasted 2 hours of two people having a pointless conversation or argument about what to do with a fictional character. You will encounter this eventually. Trust me. You will encounter it. Because you're going to get people who are going to become very deeply involved in their characters. And they're going to roleplay them, which is not a problem. The problem is that they don't usually think in the moment to step back and go, I'm playing a character playing a game. Maybe the important part here is the game.
Right?
So, the step beyond Bandit Chuck is all of the babies from evil whatever. So, you have the evil group of monster creatures that love nothing more than eating people and such. You go in and you take care of the evil monster factory or whatever. And then there are the evil monster babies.
Yep.
Which is the worst element of the prisoner evil Chuck the bandit dilemma. And you end up in this situation where you have one group going, no, I will never kill the babies, especially baby carrots. And the other one going, well, they're evil.
For fuck's sake, White Cat.
As a DM, I will make this suggestion. Don't put your players in that situation.
It's a little dumb.
Because, one, it's going to lead to really, really dumb arguments. Or really, really uncomfortable situations. So, by and large, take into consideration the maturity of your players, what they can and cannot deal with, and let's just put it perfectly as frank as I can. The evil monster factory doesn't need evil monster babies.
Yeah, like maybe don't, especially if you know that your players are going to have an issue with this, maybe don't put it in front of... Okay, if you've already got the issue with the fucking stubborn paladin player and the thief who wants to get in all kinds of trouble, then maybe don't put something on the plate that's going to make them fight.
Which is going to give them another chance to have that same
Just
pointless
get another excuse, you know? Oh shit,
Or-
I fucked up.
I'll put it this way. I had a DM who wanted to highlight how stupid it was that we had, and it wasn't a paladin in this case. It was a fighter and what became the thief that came known as rogues.
Yeah.
And these two would fight over everything. They would fight about how you cross the
catch her.
street. So, what happened was, our DM got so tired of it that he had the villain, who they both had a personal reason and character to want this to be done with, wear armor, which was basically puppies strapped to him.
Puppies?
Live
Jesus
puppies.
Christ.
He wanted to make it as ridiculous. So, he had this ridiculous villain dressed head to toe in puppies strapped to him. Because he wanted to highlight that this was stupid, and what it devolved down into was most of the group holding our hands over our eyes and shaking our heads. Well, these two had a knockout, drag-out fight about what to do about puppy armor.
Oh my god. The words puppy armor, I can't.
We can't attack them. Those are innocent puppies. Well, we need to get rid of him so he can't hurt more puppies. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And welcome to 2 hours of your night wasted between two morons having an argument over puppy armor.
Yeah.
Inevitably, this is something you will encounter. And the best way to handle it is directly, politely, and with an eye at basically treating it like a situation involved where no one is technically to blame.
Really sorry.
I know that sounds dumb, and it sounds kind of strained, but you need to be diplomatic. Approach it in a way that's even-handed and go, look, guys, do you not understand how ridiculous this is? You're fighting a dude wearing puppies strapped to him. And you have a wizard with a sleep spell.
Yeah. That's pretty true.
But you have to descend into these pointless arguments. There's no middle ground. Either you guys figure this out so that we can go back to having,
fun,
or you change your characters, or you need to go find another group. We're not going to keep playing this game.
Yeah, it was dumb.
So, that is a thing that you will have to deal with. It's annoying as heck to do, but it will make your life better, because you need to view it in the manner of, it's my free time and it's their free time. I don't want to waste it on pointless arguments over nothing.
Yeah.
So, to respect my players and myself I am not going to allow this to continue going. And resolve it in as peaceful of a manner as you can.
Never going back to that.
Because sometimes there will be hurt feelings. Sometimes people will go, hey, look,
nothing.
I don't enjoy this. Or, hey, you're right, I'm not enjoying myself, I'm going to go. So there's a bunch of different reasons. There's a bunch of different ways, but you're going to have to deal with this in this hobby. I refuse to call it a community.
You know that?
What? Next time,
And that's a big thing in
Just
my
have to send the wife a coin or two to shut her up. Oh,
but I've completely railroaded over Farf.
and cough up more coins.
Would you like to make any comments on it?
Well, we have a lot of stories about this. Let's not forget about our North Carolina group and some of the trouble we had there.
Oh god.
And we had a lot of... It wasn't always on the same level, but we had a lot of trouble with specific players butting heads a lot over odd things, or making characters that almost seemed like they were going to contradict one another no matter what.
The good old revenge character.
Well, I understand
That,
things
too.
can't continue as they are.
The revenge character's a whole nother kettle of fucking
that'd
wormy
be
fish.
Another video in and of itself.
But we had some characters that
I'm not doing
they
this
weren't
because
bad
I hate
characters
Pendleton
the
Company.
way they were written or played, but they were characters who were almost, it wasn't really deliberate, but they just did not get along. And they couldn't get along. Okay, so we had one guy who, you know, when he played, he was having a lot of trouble at home, and, you know, things were tense. So he would come in, and he was very particular. Like, this dude was like one of those D&D or nothing kind of dudes.
Yeah.
It took the most stubborn pushing of other systems to get him to even try them.
Can be too aggressive.
Eventually, we did
But
get him in on our
Pendleton has
Palladium
also been
Fantasy
working with the Romans
games,
to help. The company has always
and we had issues with him and another one of our players who, this guy just wanted to play something. He would make really off-the-wall characters because he was just having a blast. He'd come with his wife, and his wife would hang out with our other buddy's wife while we would play, and he would just make just oddball characters, and you could tell he was having fun. Like, the last character he had made, it was like, I think he was like a drow or a half-drow who had, like, escaped the Underdark or something. And this dude was, like, the most skirt-chasing motherfucker, like, ever.
Oh god.
But he had really, really poor taste and bad ideas, to the point that he got really fixated on this chick who was obviously plotting to kill him. And this kept causing problems because she would follow the party around and help. But the thing is, he had earlier been bitten by, cursed to basically become a werewolf later. And this other character, this NPC, knew it. So she was following him around all nice, but acting really insidious when people weren't paying attention because she was waiting for him to change so she had an excuse to murder him.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
this guy just was complete, like, he knew, but his character, because he's playing with characters, completely oblivious. He's too busy trying to figure out how he's going to get her in the sack. And this character ended up causing a lot of problems over time with the character the other guy was playing, because that character was usually very rigid, very deliberate, and they also had really different play styles. Because the one guy, like I said, he's trying to play whatever, and yeah, the other guy he was still trying to play like it was 3rd edition D&D. And we weren't even running a D&D system. So you would have these inevitable, like, in-character debates, and they would usually kind of degrade into, like, arguments, or characters trying to do shit 2 different ways, like, actively, which, of course, then was risking you having to split the party, which makes things harder for the guy running the game and the rest of the party, because then you got to figure out who's going with who, or are you just going to let this idiot go off by himself?
Yeah. That's a fun one right there.
And since we're doing this and we're trying to cap an hour, let's talk about the issues with splitting the party for frivolous ass reasons.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I'll let you pick that one up.
Via time and tradition, all humans are born with one sacred piece of information that we have all gained and some of us simply lose. And that is never split the party.
Mm-hmm.
This is an element in which I can kind of boil it down to. It doesn't matter the class. It doesn't matter the character. There will be a time in which you will be faced with the, how do I say, the inevitable choice of, well, we could do two things at once, or someone needs to do a little scouting, or whatever. And splitting the party becomes a topic.
Yep.
In this regard. You must always remember this. Splitting the party makes everything that occurs take more time, because then a lot of DMs feel obligated
To try to run things for both sides.
to give equal time, even if it's one player versus three players. And you need to always remember that when you split the party, or someone splits it, they are decreasing your ability to deal with threat.
Well, your combat effectiveness drops sharply with less party members.
That's what I meant by threats.
Yeah.
So, it is a thing that can be useful at times, but traditionally this has always happened with the rogue, thief, and or monk, or even the ranger in D&D terms.
What the fuck is this guy
Because
doing up here?
at one point or another, they will inevitably have some reason that they'll want to trek out by themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll encounter something that's meant for a group to fight, and for some reason there does seem to be a awful proclivity that when people get caught, so there you are, Mr. Sneak Man, and you're
Mr. Sneak Man.
you're sneaking through the alleys towards the evil man's thing. Sneak Man versus the evil man. And then guard dude notices you.
Guard
and
dude? Jesus.
You fail your check because you inevitably roll a 1 when it's the worst possible time.
Yeah,
and
that
guard
sounds
dude,
about right.
who's about as intelligent and sharp as a rock on steroids thrown downhill,
Rock
suddenly
roids.
goes, "Oh my god, I can see in the dark, and I see a little jerk. Sneak Man, I
Because you always get the greatest rolls when you don't want them. Holy fuck.
Yeah, especially as a DM. Your DM is at that point screaming internally.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I've seen this happen numerous times. Sneak Man, the rogue, pulls his short sword and starts trying to fight the dull-witted guard.
And it never ends well unless you've got a really good weapon or a bunch of skills that you're using constantly to some extent.
Who releases some form of flagellance, calling in other guards who all start like stomping the little skinny rogue person.
Doesn't generally work out real well.
Now you're down a rogue and down a party member. Well, thank you for lurking, Revan. And this is the innate problem, is that at the worst time a bad roll will happen, a mediocre roll will happen. Whatever, because you're making multiple rolls, you will fail eventually. And then everything will go downhill.
Yeah.
So the reason people go, never split the party, is because it inevitably leads to someone getting their stuff kicked in. But let me be perfectly honest. There are a load of different examples, but I have actually seen in game where characters have gone into town and they refuse to split. So they all inevitably ended up in something like a bathhouse watching each other pay. So that no one can sneak in and stab them.
This is the classic, like, we're not even going to split the party to use the bathroom kind of thing.
There's someone dropping a deuce, and there's 3 people.
4
staring at
motherfuckers sitting outside the stall, just waiting. It doesn't look weird at all.
A good example, if you would like to see someone with higher production value, check out Seth Skorkowski.
It's Skorkowski, yeah.
He has a video on Never Killing the Party. But regardless, if you are Sneak Man, let me make a number of different suggestions. Run away.
Yeah, pretty much. That's the
Run
only
away.
suggestion.
Use smoke bombs. Throw sand in people's eyes.
Well, you're supposed to be a dirty fighter, so fight dirty.
Don't stand there in front of the 250-pound muscle-bound, somewhat humanoid creature who's going to beat you to death.
And I'm gonna tell you, the worst thing is when you have a thief, and we did have one, he didn't do it on purpose, but then he didn't do the smart thing when it happened, is having a thief when you're fighting things that aren't human that decides to do that.
In this example, I will bring one up from my past experience. I'm not going to use any names, but we were doing a island adventure, so we were jumping from island to island, exploring this forgotten island. I don't remember everything, so forgive me.
It's been a long time.
So the party encounters a golem,
Yep.
like basically a rock golem.
Yeah.
And we had a dwarf rogue. So the sneak guy, who was a dwarf, who had nothing in sneaking.
Nope.
And refused to do backstabs.
That was a unique one. And he kept insisting on using pick
Need
weapons.
something?
And
Got some good
he was
stuff
trying
in.
to crit fish with a
Where are you
dwarven
going?
ancestral
Come
weapon.
back
I
if
don't
you
even
get the
remember
chance.
which one. But when we questioned what he was doing, because he stood in front of it and got punched into the ground multiple times,
Yeah.
we were like, what? You said you were making a rogue. What are you doing? What is your rogue doing? Oh, I'm not that kind of rogue.
Do you remember what his primary weapon was when he wasn't using that damn thing?
No, I do not.
He kept trying to, like, crossbow fight. He was fighting golems and gargoyles with a crossbow.
Well, regardless, the problem we had was he wasn't sneaky. He didn't do what his actual role would be, backstabbing. And he looked at us and said, well, I'm not that kind of thief. But he said rogue. But I'm
Whatever.
old enough that I remember whatever.
Yeah.
But we ran into the situation, and I just was like, dude, I don't understand what you're doing with your character. It doesn't seem like it's working out. So when his initial strategy of I will hit it with pick didn't work, he went on to, and thank you for reminding me, crossbows.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd think
Please,
a
wait.
few levels in, Mr. Sneak Man would figure out that
Excuse
being
me,
a sneak man
Are you
requires
really going to the prison?
sneaking. He does not ever learn this.
Yeah.
He would stand in the open,
In the prison?
firing a crossbow.
Well,
So he never used most of the tools.
are you okay if I came
So-
with
We're all like, we don't understand. Why didn't you just make a ranger?
you? Really?
Right.
Thank you.
And I don't think we ever actually got a straight answer on that. Like,
And
it was
we-
obvious he didn't really know how to or have much interest in playing an actual, like, thief or rogue.
So we continue on. We end up going into one of these
Okay.
tombs,
Mm-hmm.
full of undead, and this is when he decided that he needed to be Mr. Sneak Man
Yeah. Suddenly.
with a 5 in
The
sneaking.
entrance to the waterway should be near the middle of the shantytown.
Now,
The truth is,
if you don't
I was a
know
little
anything
reluctant to
about,
come here.
especially 3rd
Pendleton
edition,
is to blame for
a 5
so
in
many-
sneaking
I'm sorry.
is not
This
very
probably
good.
isn't the time or place.
Especially
Yeah.
when you're playing a dwarf who only has a +1 dexterity.
Yeah,
I'm boiling this down as much as I can. So that means if he makes a sneak roll, he's got a 6 between 5 skill plus 1 dexterity.
Yeah.
A normal roll is 10. So that means on a dice he has to roll a 4. Okay.
Which is not great, but I mean...
That's not too bad. What's the problem? Well, we were in a tomb full of multiple different monsters. All kinds of undead and things like that. Now, a lot of them don't have very good awareness.
Right.
But what it meant was he was very, very close 90% of the time to failing his rolls.
Yeah.
So, as it always goes, he decides, I'm now Sneak Man, and I will sneak.
With
And he tries-
no skills in sneaking whatsoever.
So imagine this circular room with a little covered area with a big red gem on it. You know, trap. He got into the room ahead of our characters.
You mean
And decided that he was going to sneak into the middle of the room and grab the gem. With a bunch of undead in it.
Yeah, that went probably worse than a lot of people would expect. That didn't that end up getting like damn near the whole party killed, I think.
So, to our surprise, he had to make 2 rolls to get to it,
in that case?
and he blew it out. He rolled a 12 and a 15. Now, these were just skeletons, not super observant skeletons.
No.
The problem was the second he laid his hands on that gem, pulled it out, it brought together a revenant awake.
No, it wasn't Revenant. It was ghouls.
I thought it was a revenant because I remember the skeleton in the armor.
There was a skeleton, but when he fucked with that, it also summoned that room of ghouls. Remember, because he was stuck down there with him, and we couldn't get to him.
Regardless, what happened was he now had to make more rolls, and there were more counter rolls. And he rolled a 1.
Yeah, not great.
Alright, so Dwarf Sneaky Man, who is not very good at being sneaky, rolls a 1, and has told us over and over again, I am not that kind of rogue.
Derp derp.
We never figured out what kind
What
of rogue
he was.
Because what happens when Sneaky Man Dwarf gets caught by a room full of skeletons and ghouls?
Nothing good.
He rolls a 1. And then he pulls out his pick.
Yeah, and tries to and that goes about as well as you would think.
And, you know,
A treasure chest.
he gets slammed into the pavement like, the Knockout Kid versus freaking, Brock Lesnar.
Oh, God.
You know, 1, 2, 3 kid. There we go. I remember that. But, I mean, some skinny little dude getting destroyed. I mean, you get dogpiled by it. So, what does all this rambling mean? Don't split the party.
Like,
Unless...
it's absolutely necessary, or it's something that... And honestly, even if the GM suggests it, it still doesn't necessarily mean you should do it. It might not be a good idea.
Unless you have a backup plan.
Yeah.
If you are, just for example, if you're playing one of these classes that would normally want to trek out by yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you need to have a backup plan. You need some ways to try to get away. You need to have some things with your party so that they know what's going on and what they should do.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm not back in 10 minutes, you need to come after me.
Yeah.
Or
Some
you
kind
know,
of direction.
you have things to throw at things pursuing you. Caltrips, for example, are really great. Broken glass, whatever. You need an exit strategy, and your party needs to know exactly what you're going to do in a bad situation and what they need to do in a situation. But unless you need to, don't split the party.
Yeah, it's
But
not.
don't
It's not a
also
great idea.
stand around watching each other. Go drop a deuce at the local inn. It's kind of weird.
Kind of.
Have a little trust in your DM.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a bad DM, that's a whole different thing. Then you need to find a new one. But if they're trying and you have people just being assholes, that's counterintuitive, and they're not going to want to run stuff for you anymore.
Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, there is words of wisdom in there.
That did not
But
work.
there's a lot of shades and elements and levels to it that you need to understand, and you only get that through time. So if you're new to it, you'll learn, trust me. Especially after your party gets destroyed.
Yeah, that usually is a learning experience, which unfortunately sometimes means you have to make new characters.
Yeah, usually that's what it means. But it is important to consider the reasons why you're doing it. And this will help you in the long run in a lot of other areas than just splitting the party.
Also true.
Have a plan for what your characters want to do. Have backup plans. If things are going bad, consider how you're going to exit. Think out a lot of different strategies and or things that you would like to do.
Yeah.
Do we need to fight these guys? Can we do something like?
Can this be avoided?
Can you avoid it? Can we soften it up?
Or talk our way out of it, maybe. You know, there's options.
What tools can we use to give ourselves advantages and or help us get out or get around things? There's a lot to it. So when they say that, it is important to not split the party unless absolutely necessary. Then, if it's absolutely necessary, the person that's going to be trekking ahead or persons need to have a backup plan, an exit strategy, and they need to have at least some equipment to help them accomplish those things. And see, the players that are left behind, they need a strategy as well. They need to know this is where they're going, this is what they're trying to do, this is, if something goes wrong, this is what we do, and all kinds of different elements. Like, you can give them times, like, wait for this long and then go here. Bunch of other things. Heck, they might even set up distractions. Like setting a false fire, like with smoke sticks, or I think that's what they're called. I don't remember exactly. There's an item you could get in a lot of editions of D&D that's basically these sticks you pull, and then what they do is create smoke but no fire. You can use them to make it look like something's on fire, or to you could put them in a room that's closed, and then when you're planning on doing an escape, you pop that door open so a huge amount of smoke comes rolling into the room, or yada yada yada. You can make people come out of things, like if they're locked up in a cave or a town or whatever, or a house or whatever. Pardon me. But plan things out. It's a call to action. Effectively going,
that went great.
Don't split your party unless you know what you're doing. And you need to take the executive decision to go, is this important enough to risk the party? If it's not, then let's find other ways to deal with it. A good part of tabletop role-playing is figuring out problems and figuring out ways to deal with them. And not simply just using, well, I have a sword, let's hit them.
That logic is sound only in situations where it's, an actual necessity. Sometimes in games like this, it's not like... It's a difference, I think, a big problem between people who play a lot of video games or MMORPGs and people who are just getting into tabletop games, where a lot of those games, your first and best option is to beat the piss out of it.
well, is usually the easiest option.
Yeah.
And especially D&D, a good portion of the system is set up towards, well, I hit it really hard.
Yeah.
And hey, look, there's nothing wrong with that kind of game. Those are what we call beer and pretzels game. It's just that don't always assume that the only option is violence. I think that's a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another truism in so much that there are exceptions and considerations. Ooh.
What?
Well, I think that it also comes down to the same thing that we began talking about, or at least I began rambling about, is
dude.
Leave this
player
to me, Adol.
dynamics.
I can break their defenses.
A party that works together, communicates well, and trusts their DM not to screw them over is going to have a lot more fun, and they're going to find themselves with a lot more opportunity in games to do various different things. You might not be able to defeat that orc horde via straight up violence, but you can find other ways to do it. Maybe you make friends and things like that.
Yeah.
The big thing in every one of these situations is that, one, it's a group game, it's a group activity.
Yep.
And working with your group to accomplish things is going to be far more important than any one character trying to steal all the glory.
Yeah.
And I would probably finish out my comments with
It's amazing Balduke has such huge tunnels beneath it.
this.
We can use my gift to reach higher areas.
Respect yourself,
I'm sure it'll come in handy.
respect your players, and respect everyone's time.
Yeah, because, you know, it's hard enough getting a group together. And in a lot of cases, especially nowadays, with so many different places, how many different stupid restrictions or whatever, or just work and shit getting in the way. You know, you can't always find a group. So if you have one, or if you have friends who can get together for a group, you don't want to fuck it up. That's the last thing you want, because you don't know when you could get another one.
Scheduling is always a consideration. But if anybody wants, have us do another ode to Counter Monkey. We got various different RPG stories from, well, we've both been in it probably, what, combined 60 years?
Christ. About 40, I think, actually.
Maybe a little bit longer because I've been in the hobby longer than you.
Yeah, you have.
We have a lot of stories. We can talk a lot about philosophy, and more importantly, we can answer questions. If you want to know something, or you want us to talk about something when it comes to tabletop RPGs, just leave a comment. We will more than likely talk about it. We love to have actual input.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's always an interesting thing because we've gone through a lot of different experiences throughout life, and it's always fun to share that experience with other people.
Yeah.
And hey, we're looking at what we can talk about that might be entertaining to people who watch this. So that's what I'd say. But my closing comments are exactly the same. Respect yourself, respect your players, respect everyone's time. And that's what I think I got to say.
I think we're hitting the hour mark, and we don't like to let these talks go on for too long, so I think we're doing pretty well here. So I'm going to say this is where we're going to go ahead and stop. We appreciate...
Holy cow, the air came on.
We appreciate the couple of you who are here, and I appreciate anybody who pops up later. And beyond that, everybody have a great day.
Oh yeah, I'll add one thing more.
Have at it.
If this channel ever gets to 100 views, as a person who enjoys and reads Warhammer 40k, I will get the book Godblight, and I will do a review on this channel and I will decide how much I hate my life at the end of it.
Oof. Oh, that's going to be pretty bad. All right, guys. Thanks a lot for hanging out. Anybody who watches it later, thanks a lot. Share the links around. Hey, feel free to comment. We read the stuff. And we'll see y'all later. I'm fucking out.